Namaskar. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome everyone to our 16th session on how to study the Bhagavad Gita. Today we will cover chapter 13, that is Kshetra, Kshetrajna Yoga. Nilesh, we did the Bhakti Yoga in the last session where Krishna was talking about Sagun and Nirgun Bhakti. Now coming to this chapter, he is trying to explain what is a Kshetrajna and Kshetra. What I understand is Kshetrajna is the Atma, which is like the Surya or the Akash, which is Sarvavyapi, and Kshetra is a Sharir. So can you elaborate on this philosophy of what Bhagwan is trying to tell us?
Yes, so now we are changing from Bhakti Yoga to Jnana Yoga. Okay, so first to second chapter, then 3, 4, 5 is a Karma Yoga. In a broad way, in a softer way, we can see that 6, 7, 8 is like a Dhyana Yoga. Then 9, 10, 11, 12 is Bhakti Yoga. And now we are entering Jnana Yoga. So 13, 14, and 15 would be Jnana Yoga. So if we have to summarize this chapter, but I will also connect with 14 and 15. If we want to, so far we discussed, so we will not go into the previous chapters, what we discussed. The connection is there. It's a continuation of it. For example, in the 10th, we did Vibhuti Yoga, 11th is a Vishwarup Darshan, and the 12th chapter was Vyakta, Vyakta, Saguna, Nirguna, right? So that thing continues. It's a more elaboration of that. And now if we want to understand something, understand a thing, what do? I mean, one is like at a very high level, we can say how it operates, what it is meant for, what is its purpose, what are its limitations. So that's understanding at a macro level. But then to understand how it functions, to achieve a mastery over it, what we may do, and again, the car is a good metaphor. You may take out the separate parts. Every part in a car, it can be totally laid out, every ball bearing, rings, shaft, crankshaft, steering wheel, tires, the whole body, engine, coolants, you can take it out and just try to understand what it is. So essentially, you are taking it out, separating it, defining what each part is, like a name, for example. So that's like at a very basic material, crude level, you can say that. Then the next thing, we are talking the kshetra in this case. Then we are trying to put it together. Now, when we put it together, an assembly of few parts, few coming together, we might give a name to it. Okay, a steering mechanism or a braking mechanism or accelerating mechanism, something like this. And then it functions as if it becomes like active, like a car. When you start the car, even if you come out of the car is running. It's like saying it has a chetana. Okay, but that chetana is different than chaitanya. Okay, the person who caused it or the mechanism that's creating is different. So that is understanding kshetra and understanding kshetrajna. So this is like taking away the parts, understanding the separate parts, putting them together in sub-assembly, understanding their functions and how this works together. That is understanding the jnana. But the one point I want to mention, and that will be summary of it. So there is a very crude, there are like say crude parts in the car. Again, the car's metaphor. Again, you make those sub-assembly and they function in a certain way, like a brake assembly and acceleration assembly and steering assembly. Then, of course, there is a driver, which is you can think of as a kshetrajna for a simple metaphor purposes. But there is something in between. Like in the modern day, we can think of this as the software in the car. Okay, electronics and software in the car. But before, when say electronics did not exist, then we would have said it is a knowledge that sort of, where does it exactly stays? I mean, it stays in the kshetrajna, the driver, but it is transferred into the physical mechanism of the car. For example, driver knows when to brake, but that ability to brake it is inbuilt into the car. That's what we can call the software. And we'll talk about this, what that software is. So yes, there is a kshetra. It is split it into very purely material, and you can think of this as a software. And then kshetrajna, who is basically, you can say, a car maker, the one who designed the car and one who know how the car functions. So that's what we are going to discuss this here, as an individual, at an individual level, human being or an individual living entity, but also at the level of a cosmos.
So can we, is it similar to a bulb, electricity and that wire? So say the bulb is the kshetra, the sharir, the electricity is the Atma, the kshetrajna, and the wire that because of which it starts, or is that in between, the prana, or a in between thing which is trying to put it together? I mean,
okay, the great one, great one. I mean, another wonderful metaphor that you used. I would say, with my limited understanding, even the light, even the light that you may say in the bulb, okay, for example, or the electricity that is flowing through the wire, you may think of this as a chetana. But that Chaitanya is actually a effect of the Chaitanya. So Chaitanya is something different.
Something different, okay.
Right. So Chaitanya is somewhere out there. Like, Chaitanya is like the one who figured out the electricity, who installed the electricity, who knows how it works, and who makes it work. Because somebody has to produce electricity somewhere that flows through it.
Right.
And you can extend that concept for even production of electricity too, because that's another kshetra that some kshetrajna is running it.
So that
Right?
second chapter really tries to tell us the unfathomable part of Atma. Ashcharyavata pashyati kashchidenam. It's everything is. It's not possible to describe Atma, the Kshetrajna, in any one particular definition. In one particular way.
Correct. So
Nobody
just
has,
like, go ahead.
nobody has
Sorry.
seen it. Nobody has felt it. Nobody can describe its size, structure, nothing. But it is there.
Yeah. So it's
Because
like, yeah, correct. Like, because I think, therefore I am, like the Western, the Western way of how they came, cogito, like because I think and therefore I am. So we all feel it. We kind of may feel convinced. Now, some people who cannot go beyond a certain limited thinking will not able to understand it. But ultimately, what you are saying is, and that is very true, that's what Bhagavad Gita is saying, ultimately it remains a mystery. So we can talk about it, and you and me can talk as much as we want to talk about it, the kshetra, kshetrajna, atma, how that kshetrajna works in the kshetra, what it gets connected, we can talk about it, but it remains at the ultimate level of comprehension. It remains a mystery.
yeah. So that's what brings me to the next question. We have been contemplating on this question for so many years now. Uh, like in this chapter particularly, Krishna has described what is jnana. He has given a lot of qualities like, ekantavas, or samachitta, or guru seva, or lack of ahankar, and many such qualities as jnana. And he says everything else is ajnan. So how do we actually understand what is jnana in a summary form, or what would you say? How do we describe jnana?
So think of it. I mean, Karl Popper talks about it, a three world interpretation. It used to say the world is out there. Then you as an individual who interacts with it, and the third world, I mean, three word interpretation, and the third entity is like a knowledge about it, knowledge of how you interact with the world, how you understand the world. And how do you store that knowledge? Well, of course, through the oral tradition, but you may also store it through, now these days, in electronic medium, like lectures, like YouTube and whatnot, but also in the books, right? So that's like a third way we put that information. We call that knowledge. That's what we call knowledge, right? Now, Bhagavad Gita describes it. I'm not saying distinctly different, but in a way it is distinctly different. That's why there is some similarity, and I'll tell you where it is. But then the software aspect, just like software, where is the computer software, or where is the computer electronics? When I say electronics, actually it's a software, right? Because that's how it's acting. Where is it? I mean, you can show the physical wires going through it or a computer program or a chip, but nowadays, especially the cloud computing and I mean, all that, where do you show it? Where exactly that software sits? It's like nobody knows. In some sense, that's how this jnana is in this chapter, from shlok number 7 to 11 is
Yes.
what is defined as a jnana.
Yeah.
Just before that, to just make that transition. So if you take look at the shlok number 6, and what I was describing as a very physical way that we understand it reasonably easy. For example, shlok 6 is ichha, dvesha, sukha, dukkha. Even here it is a soft aspect. Ichha,
Yeah.
like a desire, dvesh, somebody inside feeling hatred, sukha, feeling happy, dukkha, feeling unhappy, undesirable things. We cannot show it. Now, how do we say that somebody is happy? It's just mostly from external behavioral things, right? But inside, somebody can pretend to be happy, but inside the person may not be happy. So these are soft things. But there are, in that same verse, there is something sangats chetana dhruti. So for example, that dhruti is something you can consider as like what's the best example? Think of this as a dhruti as a like a steering wheel, chetana is like accelerator, and sangat is like you can say either steering wheel or a brakes, or dhruti is something you can say that something controls, like in a brakes. Chetana is like accelerator, and sangat is like a think of as a steering wheel. Now this is physical and it's relatively easy to understand, but my point is I'm just giving as a comparison. But chetana uh, or dhruti, what we see is something moves and then we say there is something chetan. But that can be actually a machine, right? And as opposed to an animal. And how do we differentiate that? We cannot differentiate. But worse, not worse, the difficult than this is to understand shlok 7 through 11. In fact, I find it very fascinating. The first time, I can't remember when. First time when I read this as a definition of a jnana, like at the end of the 11th verse, it says, Etad jnanam iti proktam adjnanam yadatonyatha. Okay, so it ends with Adhyatma Jnana, Nityatvam, Tattva Jnana, Artha Darshanam. These are like different things. They say, you having this, okay, is basically Jnana. So it's a very different definition of a Jnana than usually most of us are aware of. But most of the Indians will say, oh, I have read Bhagavad Gita and I understand it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we for us, reading something, reading books or having degrees is jnana, which is so wrong,
Correct. Which is
and in fact, if you come to Ishavasya, the only jnana is Atma jnana. Everything else is not jnana. So andham tamah pravishanti ye avidyam upasate. Vidyam cha avidyam cha, those shlokas, those 3 or 4 shlokas about vidya, avidya. So having vidya, the so-called vidya that we think is vidya, is also not desirable.
correct.
So ultimately, the only jnana is Atma jnana, is what Isha is, I think, trying to say.
Right. And so once you understand that, from there you can classify and bring it
Yes.
down. Like, then you can talk of paravidya and aparavidya. And it's very interesting that in the Upanishadic language, say, for example, Vedas, like Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, very interestingly, are included into ordinary Vidya.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why then we can understand, Trigunya, Vishaya Veda, Nistrigunya, Bhavarjuna, and so on. But
Yavana the pane.
Yavan Arthodapani. But I'm saying that's not to say, because, sometimes people may misunderstand. So Atmadnyan, I know Atmadnyan and I don't know how to operate in the world at all, but that's okay. No, that's not okay.
No.
Because a Atmadnyani person will never say that.
Yeah.
Only, right?
Yeah, these are the tools to go progress further in your journey of self-realization. And that can happen, that can take many lives.
Correct.
To
Because
get
Atma, yeah, and Atmadnyani person is aware of the fact that he or she is in the body.
Yeah.
And with that body, it comes as responsibilities and limitations and so on. So Atmadhyani person will never say this knowledge is useless, but it is coming from top down as opposed to someone scratching at the bottom and trying to feel that, oh, he or she knows. For example, that's just quickly last one, this on this part, the jnana, when the definition begins, and I'm saying it begins at 7, but you can actually, when Krishna starts saying kshetrajna, kshetra and kshetrajna, you can take it from there, like right from the beginning of this chapter. But from 7, he says amanitvam, okay, adambitvam. Now this is very interesting. So amanitvam is like amanita is like a namrata. And then adambitvam. Now this isn't that interesting? So namrata means not having a damba. So why these are separated as a two? Amanitvam, doesn't that mean adambitvam? The reason is the namrata, actually we find it tough, but namrata is expected to be our natural state. And the point is, if we do not allow that natural state, naturally the dambatva comes. Therefore, it is emphasized as a separate one. For example,
Dhammatva is falsehood, right? Dambhik person is a person who is pretentious or falsehood.
Yeah, or puffed up about something that he or she should not be, which is to say, as a metaphor again, suppose in the river, like in Varanasi, Kashi, right? So it's flowing, and somebody in the direction of the river's flow, somebody sort of floats there. I mean, swimming, but floats there and goes for 1 kilometer. That person, if he's intelligent, of course, he will not boast about it. Hey, you know what? From here, it is a Uttara Vahini there, so from the say south to the north there, because it turns like that. Suppose he goes for 1 kilometer in the direction of the flow. He's not going to come and boast about it like, look, I swam that far, because it's just natural. Now, if that person swims against the current, the person might say something, says, oh, actually, I guess what? I went 1 kilometer against the flow. That is what is there. So the first part, just naturally flowing with the current, is what this state should be. That is our natural condition, namrata. But when that is not, then the dambatva might come, and therefore it is separated. But the last one, it says, hey, this list is ajnana. Anything that I have not discussed here is ajnana. And what you will find is, that's it. That's what Bhagavad Gita discusses. But if you read, say, Jnaneshwari, then Jnaneshwar is not content with it. He says now people are just going to, again, that's how most of us are. So although it is not here in the Bhagavad Gita, after that, after that 11 shloka, or at the end of that 11 shloka, he goes on giving a long list of what is Ajnan.
Okay.
It's something interesting and funny. Yeah, but back to you.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I want to bring your attention to one shlok, Upadrishta Anumanta. Krishna calls himself, wears various hats in a person's journey, like a Upadrishta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta, and a Maheshwar. And this, I think, can be directly linked to the Karma Yoga. So can you explain, what kind of roles he plays, what is Upadrishta, what is Anumanta, etc.
Yeah, in some other form, this shlok and this portion also reoccurs. It might have occurred before, or it may reoccur. But this is the whole shlok, but especially the first part, what you just stated, is my favorite. Upadrashta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. This is, you can say, is somebody's evolution in Adhyatma. Okay, so for example, this morning only I was listening for a totally different reason. I copied it also. Pandit Jitendra Abhishek is, what is that? Kaivalyacha Chandanyala Bhukela Chokora. Right? So Balapani, Kheli Ramalo, Tarunya Nasale, Vruddhapani, Deva Ata, Dise Pailatira. So this is that Upadrashta is very related to that. Upadrashta is like a Sarva Sakshi, the person who is observing. You can say Chitragupta is a representation, like these days, selfie. But in this case, Chitragupta, think of it, the selfie, the person, each one of our action is recorded, so to say, into that cosmos. Now, when that is happening, the Maheshwara or the Parameshwara, you can say, is simply observing. He's aware of it. So when we are doing something in a lonely state and we think nobody is watching, actually that's not true. The laws of karma are such that, yes, your action is being recorded, so to say. That recording you can say upadrashta. So when somebody just enjoying, like, they're like kaivalyacha chandanyala, balapani khedi ramalo, tarunya nasale, like childhood was spent playing, and then other life, in different stages of life. Suddenly the person realizes. Until the person realizes, and the person doesn't have to become old to realize it. In fact, it's a fallacy. Many people think, oh, once I retire, once I become old, I will take to this. Nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay, they are in a fool's paradise. This will just not happen. I mean, there could be some lucky exceptions, but even there is a reason for it. So upadrishta is someone simply observing it. So someone meaning in this case Parameshwar, but not saying anything, because you are not noticing. You as an individual are not noticing it. You just want to do whatever you want to do. Nothing else exists for you. Now the evolution begins. Anumanta. Then somewhere you says, am I doing this right? Is there something more to life? Whatever that is. And then the person takes to the right path. Person takes to the kind of action that one ought to do as a human being. When you are doing it, that Anumanta, the Parmeshwar, is giving a Anumati, sort of gives you a signals. Sometimes they may come in the form of a siddhi, sometimes they may come in the form of success, which is also a siddhi. Like you work on something and you get success. Anumati, he's saying, yeah, you are on the right track. Okay, that's to say right track. Then if you go further, you build shraddha, conviction. Now conviction you may build on your own efforts, but here there is a discussion of a acharya, like a guru, the benefit of a guru, the value of a guru. If you get it either way, doesn't matter. Then what happens is, then the same Parmeshwar, not just Anumati he gives, not just a support or just what you say encouragement, but now he becomes your partner, bharta. He becomes a provider, he becomes a supporter of your activity. The bhokta is what? The enjoyer, right? Which means what? He takes away the karma phala from you. Meaning, yes, you are enjoying it too, but now you are doing it more for the joy of that activity rather than the outcome. So bringing you to that stage is done, and this bhokta, he enjoys it, so to say. The Parmeshwar enjoys it, karma phala, and therefore he leaves you with a pure joy. Okay. And then the Maheshwara is what? Maheshwara is this whole entire experience. The Maheshwara experience is, you can think of as the what you see in a Vibhuti Yoga, which is like splitting, different parts. That is a Vibhuti Yoga 10th chapter. Or Vishwarup Darshan is bringing it together, like a one whole car together. So when the individual parts of the car are there, nobody may be scared, but somebody who has not seen the car. But now the car is together, and without any person sitting inside, you crank it and it starts making a noise, and somebody who doesn't know it may be scared. That is like I'm giving a crude example, but that's like a Vishwarup Darshan. Now the whole thing is functioning together. Right. Okay, so that is what it is. That Maheshwara is that ultimate experience, which is to say you are not any different than other, which is what you just stated from, I don't know if you said it today, but from Ishavasya Upanishad, so Purusha, Soham Asmi.
True. Yeah, beautiful. In fact, I also link this shlok for the Karma Yoga, Bharata, for telling people do something about it. If you just sit, even Krishna is going to sit. Bhagavan is only going to sit and watch you. Only if you do something about it, you will start enjoying the fruits of it.
Correct. Yeah, and this is to be experienced, right? Which is going back to the 9th chapter. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam susukham kartum avyayam. Only when you do it, and with every stage, upadrashta, anumanta, bharta, bhokta, maheshwara, this is the formula, this is the path. And with every stage, when you actually experience it, your conviction, your shraddha gets stronger and stronger. Yes, absolutely. Yes. All right. We can end here. धन्यवाद. जगदम्ब जगदम्ब जगदम्ब.